We have Dr. Alka Rai with us. A brief introduction. Dr. Alka Rai is a faculty in the area of HRM and organizational behavior at NTPC School of Business, Noida. Support from NTPC and mentorship by IIM Ahmedabad. She holds a PhD in HRM from MNIT Allahabad. She is a UGC JRF qualified. She holds more than 5 years of work experience in academics and approximately 3 years of experience in research as a full-time senior research fellow. Her research interest lies in the area of positive organization behavior, primarily at employee engagement. She has authored more than 16 scholarly research publications at reputed international journals. I welcome you, Dr. Alka, and we are thrilled to have you here with us. And now I would request Dr. Alka Rai to please start the session.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for a very kind introduction. I just want to share my screen. So I'm just putting clicking this present now. Then
Yes.
I should go for a window or a tab, a window.
If it's a document, then please go for a window. If it's in a tab, then please go for a tab.
I think now it should be visible to everyone, no?
Right, it's coming.
Right? Yeah. Okay, fine. I assume that everyone would have received this link for the movie Mount Everest. And despite having the busy schedule, I assume that some of you must have seen the movie also. Movie is not a very. आवाज आ रही मेरी कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं?
Yes, ma'am, आवाज आ रही है.
Okay. So yes. So I assume that okay. So movie is not a very long movie. मेरी आवाज इको हो रही है कहीं से मुझे आ रही है. I think मुझे मेरी आवाज ही सुनाई दे रही है. अभी ठीक है. हाँ अभी सही है. So movie is a very short movie, not approx more nearby an hour movie, and I assume that many of you have taken time to watch the movie. So, but yes, I also feel that many of you might have not seen the movie. So I will just go to introduce briefly about the case. See, basically the incident is about the Mount Everest inclination expedition, and the movie is also developed and on this incident, as well as a very famous and the popular HBR case is also developed. But I just didn't communicate the case because I assumed that reading a case of the 15 to 20 page might be difficult for all of you. That's why I provided the link of the movie. So the case is also on this incident. So we will just go to discuss the incident first, and then we will just try to extract the learning from the incident. So this is basically the expedition, Mount Everest expedition incident. There were two teams in the movie. What we can see, there are two teams. One is the team of the Fisher, and one is the team of the Rob Hall. The first team was the Fisher developed the founded his team in 1984, and Rob Hall in the 1982. And in 1996, the time when this incident happens, they are both the team basically prepared themselves for the exciting and challenging climb of their lives on the Mount Everest. Yes, they have already taken such kind of acclimation exercises earlier also, but this time basically the case it became incident a very historic thing because it was not a very good happening thing. The result was quite saddening. So overall, this movie or the case is about the 1996 year case when these two teams decided for the acclimation expedition exercise. So then the first team was headed by the Rob Hall, and in this team also, as per the structure, there were two guides and one lead Sherpa, and other were the clients. Like the Hansen, Weathers, Fishback, it would be very difficult to recall the name of each and every client. But yes, for a brief understanding, I am just introducing here. Again, the Scott Fisher has also a team where the two guides, one lead Sherpa and the other were the clients. Rob Hall and the Scott Fisher. Rob Hall had a much better experience of the climbing than the Fisher. He has climbed Everest 4 times earlier, and he has led 39 clients to the summit in the past 6 years. And this time also he was leading a team of 8 people. And he usually advertised that he has a very good success rate, 100% success rate in this climbing, this acclimation exercise. And that's why he is well respected, and finding the client is not a problem for him. Similarly, in the case of the Scott Fisher also, he is also a good similar kind of attitude what the Rob Hall has. He is not. In terms of some working style, he is some different than the Rob Hall. Like he is some kind of hurried, unscheduled, or disorganized kind of the person, and he has experience of guiding inexperienced climbers earlier also. So this is the complete picture of the team. Rob Hall, and he has 2 guides, Groom and Harris. The clients, Hansen, Weathers. Hansen is a client jo ki you can see ki if you have seen the movie, the person who was most of the time ill, and he decided to climb the last peak, even being late, this timing of 1 or 2 p.m. Weathers is also a person who was facing this eyesight or vision issue during this climbing exercise. So this is briefly about the team. And the same day with the Fisher, and he has also 2 guides, Bockriv and Bedelman, and the other clients as well. So this is all about the basically to a glimpse of how this this acclimation exercise happen, this expedition happened. And the team report to the base camp, and the 2 teams reached the base camp on the day 8th April. After this, they just routed themselves onto the camp 1, and they reached the camp 1 on the 13th of April. And after this, on the camp 2, they reached on the 19th. After this, on 28th April, they were on the camp 3, and the final camp, the South Col, they were on the 9th May. And after this, they had to go. They had to reach the Mount Everest summit on the 10th May. And this was a complete 18-hour journey. They had to go and come back in the complete 18-hour time. And this journey from this Camp 4 to Mount Everest summit is very risky, because the lack of oxygen of above 18,000 meters can be fatal to the climbers. So that's why it is a very risky journey, the last climb. So yes, we will just go through that, what is basically happened with them during all this thing or the exercise. Base camp is located at the bottom of the Everest mountain, and each group stayed here for 6 weeks. But during this time, also they faced a problem, like in the Himalayan villages where they were staying it was an unsanitary condition. Individual arrived at the base camp with some kind of respiratory ailments. And the major thing what we can see in the movie also, that the Mountain Madness team, which is headed by the Fisher, we can see that he faced some logistic kind of issues, like the oxygen delivery was delayed, the bad weather for the supply shipment delayed arrival, conflict with the Nepali porter happened, and all these things basically create some kind of logistic problem, and somehow Fisher got exhausted while dealing all these kind of logistic issues. While preparation for the climb, the 2 expedition group performed acclimatization exercises to benefit their health and avoid these respiratory diseases. But many of the clients started facing the problem at the very beginning. Like this Hansen, who started facing the problem, some issues, health issues. Similarly, a guide, Bockriv, decided to climb without the supplement oxygen. And some other client was forced to use the supplemental oxygen, which was set to aside for a higher altitude. Fisher was physically exhausted while helping the ill Sherpa. Then during the journey from base camp to base camp 2 also, there were problems which were realized that the one client from the Mountain Madness team got ill, and Fisher accompanied him to bring him down the base camp. So such kind of things happen. Again, Hansen was still feeling some physical issues, health issues. Then going to camp 2 and camp 3, in the adventure consultant camp, we can see a boulder hit the Andy Harris, but yes, he was safe in this incident. But some clients were facing some challenging time with their ascents. They had to chop ice for hours to generate the drinking water. So such kind of issues they had to face while their acclimation to camp 2 and 3. Then during the journey to camp 3 and camp 4 also, the physical conditions of this Hansen was still deteriorating, and the hall was not much clear about the turnaround time. Turnaround time is basically the time which was decided कि आपको इतने बजे तक you have to reach the final summit, and if you will not reach the final summit by this time, then you have to turn back rather than moving ahead. Means, and this time was not clearly mentioned, but it was said as 1 or 2 p.m. They were deciding that it should be midday, and you have to reach the summit by midday, and otherwise you will or if you are not about to reach the summit by midday, then you have to come back. You have not to move ahead, क्योंकि उसके बाद if you will continue to move ahead, then you will reach the summit by evening, and then you have to turn back in the night, and you have to do the journey in the night. It may create a problem, and a serious problem, and what we can see in the case, what happened exactly. So summit day also, what says they realized that this Sherpa and this one of the person who was character was realized that there was no rope fixed to the mountain. See what they have basically a way ki, they used to fix the rope to reach the to climb and to reach the summit and the different routes. So what happens, they were in assumption ki jo pehle team gaya hai, they might have fixed the rope and they don't need to fix the rope, but once they reach this height of 1400 feet after this camp 4, then they realize ki wahan uske aage koi rope hi nahi fix hai. So this was also a kind of logistic issue which happened during this acclimation or this expedition, and which takes the time as well as make the things disorganized, and finally it affected many things in the event. So problem, Sherpa guide became physically exhausted after carrying a client Mountain Madness team, and the Fisher developed a chronic respiratory illness also. Finally, on the summit day, what happens? See what happens in the Jabibi when you are doing this expedition acclimation exercise. You have certain limitation. You cannot carry many things on your shoulder, because you have to carry the things which is essential. You can carry those things on the shoulder, but this is a limitation. You cannot carry a very high or the volume baggage at your shoulder. So in that case, what happens, you have to it is a basically rule or something like you can carry 2 oxygen cylinders with you, and one oxygen cylinder was used to kept as a south summit, जो कि आप लौटते वक्त while getting down you can use and you can pick up from there. So this was so what happens here, यहाँ पे the Andy Harris, a guide from a particular team Mountain Madness, he concluded कि वहाँ पे कोई oxygen supplemental oxygen cylinder is not at the south summit. So that also created a kind of problem in the, because a wrong information was communicated and people also accepted the thing rather than verifying the thing. So this is adventure consultant also. Climbers arrive way past the time. Past the time is which was supposed to, and it was supposed to be 1 or 2 p.m. So it was supposed to that you have to reach by 1 or 2 p.m. and then you have to come back. And but here what happens, very few people, only 4 to 5 people from including both team reached the summit by this time, and rest of the people was not able to follow this timeline. Again, a radio problem also happened. The team they were carrying not enough radios. They were carrying 2 radios in a team only. So finally, the both groups traveled up and down the summit together, sharing an unimaginably tough journey. Since the weather was thin and all of the climbers had trouble finding the base camp, especially the expedition leaders. So overall, what happens? What was basically end was this expedition exercise, and that's why it became history, and it is discussed a lot as a case or as a movie or as an event. So 5 climbers died on the journey, including the Rob Hall and Scott Fisher, both leaders who had a very good experience of this expedition exercise and who were known for such kind of things. But this time this mishap occurred, and both were not more. And along with them, Hansen and another lady Namba and another guide Andy Harris. They were also no more. And other also faced the problem, but somehow they survived. So this was a complete tragic incident happened. Weather turns worse. Ferocious snow blizzard begins at 6 p.m. Leader Hall and client Hansen request rescue from guide, but he was not able to do so because of this snow blizzard. 9 p.m. 6 clients arrived at the camp 4, while a group of clients lost just a short distance away. 2 clients died. 1 client and 1 guide was also dead. Leader Fisher also dies. At 6:20 p.m., Leader Hall makes his last goodbye call to his wife, and later he also dies. So overall, what we can see, there were some early warning signs were visible, but due to some ignorance or mismanagement or due to some kind of cognitive biases, so many reasons, these signs were ignored. Like clients were not much experienced. Clients was failing acclimatization exercises. They were getting ill. Leader was also fatigued. The Fisher, just because of this, he was not feeling physically well, and he was also physically exhausted due to this logistic issue he had to face before the start of the journey only. A verbal warning was given from the other guides and other team as well when they were turning around due to treacherous weather. They also warned that weather is not good and it is not suggested to move ahead. They have also given the verbal signs or the suggestions to these 2 teams. So leader, if you will go to evaluate this leader had a past experience. Hall had a very good past experience, but this overall, so we can see there were some signs of overconfidence in his words. He says, it's worked 39 times so far, and I can take anybody to this summit, even he's much pathetic. So he used to say, my word is an absolute law. In the same case, in the Fisher, we can see that he was some unorganized kind of the leader. And he was compromising his leadership responsibilities for some kind of personal or individual favor. Like he decided to bring his personal friend down rather than assigning this responsibility to some Sherpa or a guide. So this is a kind of behavior is observed in the case. So last 18 were critical, and the 2 o'clock rule was set, but it was not followed. We cannot say both leaders had knowledge, confidence, passion, supportiveness for their clients. They were the examples of the devotion to the client, but somehow they lack some kind of leadership ability, like the decision making, unbiased decision making, ability to admit or correct mistake or lead by the examples. So overconfidence was a major reason. So finally, this is all about briefly about the case or incident, what happened in the case and what the case says. Now we will just try to understand. We will just go for to analyze the case, to take some learning from the case, how an event could be managed, and what could be the issues faced by a leader in managing such kind of events. So overall, we will just try to develop some understanding. So anybody would like to say anything or ask anything? I hope some of you have seen the movie. I just want to see this yes or no from in or hand raise. Please. Okay. Okay, at least 2 or 3.
Ma'am, most of them have seen, they've initially messaged in the chat box that they have seen the movies.
Oh, okay, okay. Actually, once we will just go on the slideshow mode, na, we are not able to see the screen of this
Right, right. No,
participant.
we are watching.
Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, good. So probably you might be able to recognize this name also, the Rob Hall and the Fisher. Uh, uh, Hopefully, I feel कि आपको नाम थोड़ा सा याद होगा. So this is all about. So I just want to understand some of you that what were the reason, what you feel कि क्या reason थे for this such kind of the tragic incident, why this kind of incident happened. Any of you would like to present your understanding? No.
Madam, I think they have underestimated the real challenges.
Okay.
Hence,
Good.
they have not planned well.
Hmm.
Second thing is, I think personal egos were also in the way. Each one not ready to hear to the good words of the friend, or each group was not open to the advices from the other group.
Good. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. Good points, ma'am. Anybody would, anyone else would like to say? Just hold for a minute.
So I think most of them were quite confident about their own knowledge, and that were not open for any suggestion coming from any part of the group. And everyone wanted to, get that target ASAP, but they were ignoring at some point. That's what I think.
So this is the case we were discussing, and now we will just try to take some understanding from the case, learning from the case. So we just see that there are many things, as ma'am has rightly said, that the personal egos were working, or they were underestimating the challenges, or they were not realizing the basically the what is the actual thing. So yes, this is quite right points. So case in the on the basis of the case, we can say the there could be many things, but yeah, 3 things what I would like to mention here. Cognitive, interpersonal, and systematic forces played a role in the incident. Cognitive biases, team beliefs about the interpersonal risk taking, system complexity, all these things basically interacted to create a fatal disaster. The two, the Rob Hall and the Fisher, both were the very skilled and experienced people for the high altitude climbers. But unfortunately, Hall, Fisher, and the 3 members died as a storm enveloped the mountain, and others were also barely escaped with their lives. So, despite having a very good record of this expeditions, that guiding 39 climbers to the summit over the previous 6 years, in the same way, Fisher has also a very good, impressive reputation as a high altitude climber. But despite that, the result was not good. So, one of the person who has analyzed the case, or who has given, because lot of things has been written about the case or the event or the incident, and the people have given many reasons that why such thing happened. So, like someone has said that event was not an accident; it was nor an act of God. It was basically the end result of the people who were making decision about how or whether to proceed. The people say that there could be many things, like that this Hall and Fisher should be very careful as they selected these expedition members. they should have they might have used the better radio communication for the climbers, or they might have to not allow the people to go to the summit without the bottled oxygens. So well, there could be many competing explanations then how leaders can go for the broader conclusion and drive any lessons learned from this incident. So so basically we should recognize that if such kind of the tragic incident happens, if any kind of event go for the failure, there should not be a particular kind of reason, or there should not be a single reason or single cause. So we should need to understand the things holistically. We should need to examine things holistically. We should try to see the things from the multiple lenses, and try to analyze the thing from the multiple perspective. So, and in the same way, this tragic events of the May 1996 is also could not be attributed to a particular reason, but it should be a incident which happened because of many reasons, or the interaction of the many causes. So here we will explain, or we will just find our explanation along the line of few broad lines. Like the one could be the behavioral decision theory. If some of you might be from the organization behavior or from the HR background, you might have learned that some kind of biases work in the decision making. And here also we would be able to see that some kind of biases work in the decision making of the leaders. Cognitive biases were there, and we will discuss those cognitive biases. Again, the team effectiveness. Team effectiveness is the conditions or the belief required for effective team learning and performance, which was not realized here, or which was not seen here. Team was not working effectively. Complex system theory, where we can say that there was not a single cause. Many things, multiple interconnected breakdowns occurred, including the reasons from the human, technology, or the natural system. So there was a complex system working, and due to some interactions and the linkages between all these things, such kind of overall the bad, a very tragic incident happens. So this is could be an explanation that at event level many things work. Whenever we are going to see a particular event or organize an event, or we are working as an event, 2 or 3 level things can work. One things work as an individual level, one is on a group level, and one is on event or in the other context like the organization level. So for individual level, as a leader or as a manager, what there could be a cognitive biases or the cognitive limitations can work. As a group level, a team effectiveness, how the team are working, how the team are sharing belief, how the team are feeling, having trust on each other. So all these things kind of group dynamics work. And again, finally the complexity of the system, that how the things are linked, how a particular failure of a particular chain, or the particular event, or the particular thing may damage the whole sequence of the events, or the whole the complete system or the event. So this is all about. So the coming on the first thing, like the individual level, here we will just try to understand what kind of the cognitive biases happened here. Cognitive biases, there could we can see here the 3 kind of cognitive biases work here. The first thing is like the sunk cost effect. Sunk cost effect is something like कि आपने you have a tendency to basically escalate your commitment to a particular course of action, despite realizing that you are not receiving a good results. And you are just used to escalate your commitment just because you have a feeling that I have invested a lot of time or money or other resources in particular event or in particular decision. So, but usually it should not happen. People should behave rationally. They should try to see or understand the marginal cost of the benefit of the particular action. कि जो पिछला हो गया सो हो गया. Now you should understand कि what my next step will cost, or what would be the benefit of my next step. So this is all about the marginal cost. This is a concept of the economics, jahan pe you always try to analyze the marginal cost. Marginal cost means adding a particular unit or adding a particular action or adding a particular thing brings a what additional cost to you. So this is a marginal cost. So in the same way, in the decision making also, rather than going for the sunk cost effect, usually a leader should go to understand the marginal cost of the thing. But here we can see people often don't understand this sunk cost thing. They tend to pursue the activities in which they have made a prior investment. They become overly committed to a certain activity despite consistently in the poor results and throw good money after that. On a lighter note, if I would give you the example of this sunk cost effect, hope many of you would be agree. What happens in the marriage, despite having a daily arrangement, we used to stay together कि ठीक है अब इतना साल साथ रह लिया तो अभी और रह लेते हैं. So this is a very example on a lighter note. So yes, that happens. हम करते हैं despite knowing कि आगे क्या रिजल्ट आएगा नहीं आएगा, but just because in the same way many of you are PhD में भी यही होता है कि अब 2 साल दे दिया या 3 साल दे दिया तो चलो भाई थोड़ा 1-2 साल और दे देते हैं एंड चलो पता नहीं है कि आगे what is going to happen after PhD, what will be our future, what will be our career, despite knowing that all being unknown to the situation. We are used to invest ourselves कि ठीक है क्योंकि many times it happens we used to decide कि अब नहीं हो रहा है छोड़ देते हैं, then we used to continue कि चलो 2 और 3 साल दे दिया तो और 1-2 साल और दे देते हैं. So this is all about the so these are the kind of cognitive biases or the sunk cost effect. So here we in the case also escalation of commitment. The Hall and Fisher both were have a bit realization keep in such kind of expedition exercises, people are trapped by such this escalation of commitment when they approach the summit. And it happens as an individual, it may happen when you are about to reach the final summit and you have on the journey of this 18-hour difficult journey from Camp 4 to the summit, you despite feeling ki, you may have to face enormous danger if you will not reach the top until long after a midday. You would and if you will not reach the top after up to midday, you have to descend in the night, and you may have to run out of the supplemental oxygen also. But despite knowing all the things, people are just trapped by the escalation of commitment, and these leaders have such kind of relation because they were not new in the business. They were doing such kind of things from since long many years, and that's why the turnaround rule was decided that mid-afternoon or later. And in the case or in the movie, we can see such kind of a statement that it is very difficult to turn someone around high on the mountain. If a client see that the summit is close and they are dead set on getting there, they are going to laugh on your face and keep going up. So yes, that happens and they have a realization कि ऐसा होता है. But और इसके पहले they have dealt such kind of situation जहाँ पे उन्होंने sunk cost effect के साथ deal किया था, but this time they were not able to do so. Hall and Fisher spoke up often about the need to establish a predetermined turnaround time in order to avoid a dangerous situation. To avoid a dangerous situation, they have set this 2 o'clock rule. And a journalist has a written story of this Scott Fisher's famous 2 o'clock rule. And in this story, he has clearly mentioned, this journalist has mentioned that if you are not on the top by 2, it's time to turn around. Another reporter, this Krakower, who was a part of the Fisher's team, he has also mentioned in the case that darkness is not your friend. Rob was, he was a part of the Rob team. Rob had lectured repeatedly many times that this importance of having a predetermined turnaround time on the summit day. And he was used to say that it should be 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. at the very latest, and abiding by it no matter how close we were at the top. So yes, they have a realization, and that's why there were discussion on this turnaround time. But there were also things which we can see. But unfortunately, what we can see, despite other than 4 to 5 people, nobody reached the mountain by this turnaround time of 1 or 2 o'clock. And that's why this hard deadline or sticking to rule was not followed. So in the same way, Fisher also did not set a definitive turnaround time, but instead told his team that he would make the decision to turn people around if he felt they could not reach the summit by 2 o'clock. So they had a realization that sunk cost effect may happen because these people were not new. And पहले भी उन्होंने कई लोगों को they have asked the people to turn around if they were not able to reach the summit by this 2 p.m. rule, by up to 2 p.m. or a midday. Lekin this time they were not, they didn't stick to the rule, and they were not, they followed the rule basically. And there could be many reasons, and they were drawn by this sunk cost effect. Sunk cost effect not for themselves, for their clients. Like the Hansen, who was also died, and we can see in the movie to help him to reach the summit, this Rob was stayed with him longer, and they were not reached the summit up to 4 p.m. also. But he was helping him to reach the summit just because he was his earlier client also, जो उनके साथ पहले भी एक बार expeditions पे गया था. और उसके बाद क्या हुआ कि he was not able to do so in the last expedition. और वहाँ at that time Rob Hall make him to return around 360 feet पहले शायद उनको मना कर दिया कि if you cannot move forward because now time is up and you have to go back. So this time he was also carried by some kind of feeling कि ये आदमी मेरे साथ दोबारा आया है, and with investing of this $70,000, so I should take him to the peak and I should help him because he had invested a lot and he is with me for the second time. And this happens. So again यहाँ पे भी यही हुआ है, and this there were mentioning on this sunk cost effect. There were statement like the Crocker, who was a reporter in the team, he has mentioned that it is very difficult in order to succeed. In order to succeed, you must be exceedingly driven. Even if you are too driven, you are likely to die. Above 26,000 feet, the line between the zeal and the reckless summit fever becomes grievously thin. And there were people who decided to come back, like that and followed this timeline of 1 or 2 p.m. Taske, Hutchinson, Fishback, Cassius. So there कुछ लोग थे ऐसे जिन्होंने those who followed this timeline despite spending of this $70,000 and the weeks means, or you can say a month of agony to this one shot out at the summit. But they took this tough decision and they decided to come back, and they took the right choice that day. So this sunk cost effect का reason यहाँ पे यही था, because the investment in the in terms of the money and the time was high. The investment was of $70,000, and again this 26,000 feet high. जब आप you have already traveled some 26,000 feet along to reach the summit. तो वहाँ पे जाने के बाद it is quite difficult to turn around, and that's why this sunk cost effect work in the decision making, and such kind of cognitive biases comes. So यहाँ पे भी so these were the reasons. People will have invested a month here. April to May हो चुका, yes, April to May था, and उसके भी पहले they might be having some sunk cost effect, like कि family में you have committed to your wife कि this time I will come back with this flag that I have achieved this summit. You have committed to your friends. You some kind of prestige is related to such your achievement of reaching the Mount Everest. So there are many things works for this sunk cost effect, and that's why this biases may come. So that's and here also this was realized, and leaders were also trapped by such kind of biases. So all the other climbers choose to proceed despite feeling a danger of falling behind the schedule. No one arrived at the summit by 1 p.m. 1 बजे तक तो कोई नहीं पहुंचा था, and 2 बजे तक 2 p.m. by 2 p.m. only 6 individuals reached the top. 17 others, including Hall, Fisher, arrived later in the afternoon. And what happened? We can see the result that was what was the final result of such kind of sunk cost effect in the cognitive biases in the decision making to move forward despite being late on reaching the summit. So this is all about uh, and why such kind of things happen. Like the Hansen, who was the person who was traveling a second time with this Rob Hall, and he has clearly made a statement that I have put too much of myself into this mountain to quit now without giving it everything I have got. So yes, and again, Hall and this Hall has make him to turn around the just 30 feet, 330 vertical feet from the summit last time. So that's why Hampton was also carried by this sunk cost effect. Sorry, Hall was also carried by this sunk cost effect to help Hampton to reach the summit despite being late. And he was continuously ill throughout the journey. So on May 10th, Hansen struggled mightily but continued to press toward the summit long after midday. He did not reach the top until 4 p.m., but Hall never turned him around despite the late hour, and both men died during the descent. There is another example we can see in the case Beck Weathers. All of you must have remember in the movie there was a person who felt a serious vision impairment, and he says that my one eye is completely blurred over. I could barely see out of the other. I have lost all the depth perception. And he was Rob also tried to send him back to the camp 4. He said ki aap wapas chale jao, you cannot if you are not able to carry on. But he convinced that no, I will try, and that's why he was left there at a particular point by the people. And he never reached the summit that day. He became lost, disoriented, and others left him for the dead at one point of the time. But he was somehow he was lucky that he managed to survive and reach the camp finally. But he suffered the permanent disabilities after this expedition exercise. So overall, this sad story says that experts as well as novices can become a victim of the sunk cost effect. The experienced climbers such as Hansen and Weathers were engaged in such kind of a dangerous escalation of commitment as they approached the summit. Hall and Fisher's experience did not prevent a similar lapse in the judgment, and Hall and Fisher also were trapped by such kind of sunk cost effect in their decision making and the cognitive biases they realized, and they ignored their own rules designed specifically to combat the sunk cost effect bias and put themselves and their clients in a grave danger. So this is the example of the sunk cost effect and escalation of commitment. There is a very famous example of this escalation of commitment is also what we can see. Many of you must have seen this Mahabharata and Shri Krishna, because it was telecasted again during this lockdown time. And whole the Mahabharata and the loss of this Yudhishthir happens just because of this escalation of the commitment. He was put to many things at its stake while all the things, and finally he lost all his property and finally the wife also. So this was also a very famous example of the escalation of the commitment. You used to put your things to invest and say ki shayad abhi behtar result aa jaye, despite realizing ki the previous results were not good. Finally, one more biasness we can see here is an overconfidence bias. As ma'am was saying, they were underestimating the challenges. So yes, here we can see their overconfidence bias was working, and this impaired the judgment of the climbers in this case. Hall and Fisher both have many reasons to be confident, because confidence कब आता है जब आपके लाइफ में सब कुछ बहुत अच्छा चल रहा होता है, and you are continuously facing success in your life, and it make you basically impair your judgment. The continuous success, sometimes you impair your judgment and you just used to drawn by some kind of overconfidence. And here also happened, because what happened, the Hall has basically climbed to the top of Everest 4 times earlier, guided 39 clients successfully. And there is a record which says that the 400 individuals had completed a successful ascent in the previous 5 years, and almost most of them did not have the ability and experience that Hall and Fisher possess. So all these kind of success made them to be overconfident. And Hall and Fisher each made bold statements during the climb, and that demonstrated the classic signs of the overconfidence. What we can see here, one of the time this Fisher has mentioned that I have got the big E figured out. I have got it totally wired. I'm telling you, I have built a yellow brick road to the summit. Such kind of confidence was developed in among these two leaders. He used to say to the journalists that I believe 100% that I'm coming back. My wife also believes that 100% that I'm coming back. My wife is not concerned about me at all when I'm guiding, because I'm going to make all the right choices. So this is the signs of the overconfidence. Similarly, the Rob Hall used to say, I can get almost any reasonably fit to the person to the summit. He had a reason to be confident, because he had he used to say to this Crocker also that the things had worked 39 times so far, and a few of the blokes who submitted with me were nearly as pathetic as you. So yes, these were the signs of the overconfidence from their statements. But we cannot say that they were not seeing the things. They had also a realization that things may happen, but wahi that a typical mentality कि मेरे साथ नहीं होगा किसी और के साथ होगा. And what happened like in the आजकल COVID के time पे this is happening कि we are being careless. We have a tendency when the COVID started and now after when the things are being normalized, we had a feeling कि मुझे तो नहीं होगा किसी और को होगा. I have a very good immunity and all the things. And suddenly when you feel कि शायद आपको थोड़ा सा symptom लगता है, और when you get to know कि someone else at nearby you is affected, then suddenly you feel कि अरे कहीं मुझे भी ना हो गया. So this is a typical mentality of the people कि I am confident मेरे साथ नहीं होगा किसी और के साथ होगा. So in the same way they had also feeling कि I am quite well, I have all the abilities, I have all in the same way like we all feel कि I have immunity. In the same way they had a feeling कि हम में तो कुछ नहीं होगा because I have all the immunity. Yes, Everest is dangerous, but not for me, might be for others. Other climbers were also had some kind of overconfidence despite having inability to reach the mountain. They were not physically well, but they are also having some kind of overconfidence biases we can see from and they were basically overly positive assessing the risk and the obstacle associated with the climbing Everest. So finally, all this contributed to the lapses in the judgment that took place on the May 10. One more biases that work while the decision making is a recency effect. A recency effect is something we used to take the decision based on some kind of recent happens. Recently, अगर कुछ incident हुआ है, तो we take the clue from the recent events and we just used to take our decision based on some those recent events or happenings. So here also decision makers. So finally, if the decision maker tend to place too much emphasis on the information and evidence that is most readily available to them. And one particular form of this ability bias concerns the tendency to pay too much attention to recent events. And here also recency biasness worked in the judgment of the expedition leaders. And what happens, because what they have climbers were enjoying a remarkably good weathers on Everest in recent years. And this basically caused them to underestimate the likelihood of the dangerous storm. Several seasons of the and some statements of who are supporting the recency effect is like one statement comes like that: the several seasons of the good weather have led people to think of Everest as a benevolent. But in the mid-80s, before many of the guides had been on Everest, there were 3 consecutive seasons. There were no one climbed the Mount Everest because of the ferocious wind. So पिछले 4-5 सालों से अच्छा चल रहा था, but this was not basically rule or basically a particular fixed set of event. 80s में के टाइम पे लगातार there were 3 seasons जहाँ पे कोई भी पहुंच नहीं पाया था this mountain Everest. But here, just because of this recent events of the last 4 years, people were taking the clue कि अभी सब अच्छा है and I can also reach. But yes, they have. But it is already stated that these storms are not are the norms rather than exceptions on the event. जो कुछ भी हुआ, this was not an exception; it was a norm. The poor weather should not have surprised anyone climbing the mountain that day. So it was not norm. It was not an exception. It was not surprise. but just because of this recency effect, it was realized कि अरे मौसम खराब हो गया, and that's why it happened. But bad weather is not an exception on this kind of Mount Everest expeditions. But after season, Rob was basically facing a brilliant weather on the summit day, and but unluckily this time he was caught in the storm on high storm on the mountain. So this is all about the three kind of biases we can take the clue from this event: sunk cost effect, escalation of the commitment just because of your investment of the time or a money or energy done previously, overconfidence bias just because कि मेरे साथ नहीं होगा किसी और के साथ होगा because I have all the ability or a skill or the confidence, all the things. And last in the recency effect, taking the clue from the recent event rather than analyzing a whole sequence of the events or the whole environment. Just take the clue from the readily available information or readily available things, and just make your decision to support the things based on your information rather than going to analyze the complete things. So all these things. So overall, the learning is like that whenever you are managing a particular event, there should be basically a way to try, way to basically avoid or the suppress or the minimize such kind of cognitive biases in the decision making. And that's why a manager or a leader should go with to analyze the things, but holistically, rather than taking the clue from some recent event or the readily particular available information. Or some kind of sunk cost effect should not be should not happen ki, despite if you are taking some receiving some signs of some signs which of or the notification regarding some which is giving the clue of that something bad can happen or things are not going well, and you are ignoring the things just because of ठीक है, let it be, we will manage, and because we have reached till here or आगे भी somehow we will do this. So these things, these are some cognitive biases which may happen, which should be avoided somehow. Coming on the team effectiveness, whenever you are managing a particular event or the incidents, a teamwork and team should work effectively, because anything, organization or event or incident or a particular organization, anything, it work in a team. Nobody can do a particular thing alone. In the same way, the climbing Everest could not be accomplished alone. It was a team which was working, the team of the Sherpa or a guide or the leader and the clients. So all these things, all these people are working as a team, and these people was required to cooperate with one another or work together as a team to ascend the mountain. But unfortunately, it was noted that team effectiveness was not there. And it was realized that on a critical moments, team were not discussing the mistakes openly, exchanging information freely, or challenging their each other views or assumptions. And basically, there was an absence of the learning behavior which impaired the effectiveness of the two expedition teams. Overall, there was a lack of open and candid discussion made among the team members, and which made the whole disaster and basically brought the cognitive biases and impaired the individual decision making. Coming on this psychological safety and the team learning behavior. Psychological safety, what is, anybody has any idea what is the psychological safety? No. ठीक है, psychological safety is something again on the lighter note. What I can say, after some times in a relationship, especially when if we say I will take the example of a husband wife. Husband are usually become mute, and they are not open to share their feelings or the idea because उनको लगता है कि or maybe it may happen vice versa also. I'm not talking about from particular side. कि बोलेंगे तो उसके बाद आई डोंट नो ये कैसे लिया जाएगा, व्हाट विल बी द रिएक्शन, हाउ आई एम गोइंग टू मैनेज द थिंग्स, उसके बाद बात कहाँ पहुंचेगी और फिर पता नहीं क्या क्या होगा. सो रेदर देन गोइंग इन द डिबेट और रेदर देन पुटिंग माय व्यू, just be silent and just ignore the things what is happening. So this is a typical symptom of the psychological safety. Same way in the organization also, in the superior or the subordinate relationship, or among the friends or the colleagues also, जहाँ पे you are not choose to speak or share your view or the say the things because you have a feeling कि I don't know how I would be taken after speaking or the things or putting my view. So this is a typical have a thing which happened just because of this psychological safety. So psychological safety is so here also we can see the team didn't work well just because of this psychological safety. They didn't discuss issues and errors openly. They didn't feel comfortable on expressing their dissenting views. They were unwilling to question the procedures, team procedures, exchanging the ideas openly, revising and improving their plans as conditions changed. So all these things happen. And there was a reason which could be attributed here is a team psychological safety. Team psychological safety is like a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. It means that the team members have a level of trust or the mutual respect for one another. It means that the people, team members believe on the group, they believe themselves, believe on each other as a group. Uh, and they believe that the group will rebuke, marginalize, or penalize individual for, you will not be basically penalized for speaking up or challenging the prevailing opinions. So if these things are available in a particular team or a particular situation, then psychological safety is here, otherwise not. But here also we can see the psychological safety was not here, and the reason could be three. Many, but here I have listed three. The perceived status difference within the team, the style of the expedition leader, and the lack of familiarity among group members. So there could be three things which could be attributed here for the team psychological safety. Perceived status difference. It was available in the team, expedition team. Perception and belief about the status difference between the team diminished the psychological safety and discouraged individuals to discuss their issues and concerns openly. And what were the symptoms of this perceived status difference? Like here we can see Andy Harris, who was a very experienced guide in the Rob Hall's team, and he mistakenly concluded that there is no supplemental oxygen at the South Summit. And no one basically questioned his basically conclusion that why, how, and is it right or wrong. And everybody accepted that if he has said, then it's guide and client protocol, and if guide is saying that there is no oxygen, then it could be right. And people have a feeling if they were indoctrinated in such a way that you should not question the guide's judgment. So this was also there was a perceived status difference between the guide and the other clients. It was basically a feeling that if guide is saying, then it is right, and you should you don't have any right to ask question the judgment or the say. Guides were also uncomfortable in speaking up. Like there was a guide in the Biddleman who was a guide in the Mountain Madness team expedition, and he has mentioned that he had a very serious reservation about the people climbing well past midday. And he was not comfortable with the Fisher's decision that allowing people to go ahead despite realizing that it is already midday and allowing the people to move ahead after 2 p.m. time. But he has also feeling how I can question the decision of the Fisher and the another guide Bokrev, because Battleman was less experienced than obviously the Fisher and the Bokrev, who was another guide in the team. So this was that's why he had a feeling and he just basically suppressed his feeling, and he decided not to open up. And another reason for such kind of perceived status difference between these two guides, Battleman and the Bokrev in the Mountain Madness team in the Fisher, then there was a difference in their remuneration. 15,000 was a difference in their remuneration between these two guides, and that's why somehow Battleman has a feeling that I am less experienced and I cannot say I am having a less status than the other guide Bokrev, and that's why I should not choose to be push the things or speak up or to put my view. So this is a perceived status difference, could be a reason for the psychological safety, and it can happen in the any team, any setup, any organization, anywhere. If there is a perceived status difference and it is not managed well, then there is a very high possibility that people may not have a feeling of the psychological safety. They will not speak up, and finally being mute, to decide to be mute may bring the results like things will not be discussed constructively, and finally the decision taken could be biased. Psychological safety, leadership style is also a reason for the psychological safety. And all of you are working somewhere and you have a very clear visualization ki how the leadership style work for the psychological safety. Some of the leaders are very open to discuss the things, take the view of the people, ask the people to challenge their decision, and this happens very rare, but this is a very good sign of the effective leadership if you are allowing the people to challenge their decision, because it will make a constructive discussion and it will bring a good result, finally a result which will be basically accepted. And one of our faculty at a time used to say that the decision taken at a group is always right rather than going for the individual decision. Because the many views come and the quite a decision taken after the constructive discussion will never go wrong, and that's why this committee kind of structures are made up, and it was decided that the decision should be taken in the committee because it is a group decision, and that's why it is a feeling that it will be a right decision. But here the leadership style was not supporting the psychological safety. Rob Hall used to put a statement like that, I will tolerate no dissension up there, my word will be absolute law beyond appeal. If you don't like a particular decision I make, I would be happy to discuss it with you afterwards, not while we are on the hill. So he used to say that what I say, this is a law, and I'm not going to discuss the things, and if I will discuss, but once we will be at finally we would be concluding the journey. So this kind of the forceful statement from the Rob Hall discouraged the climbers to raise their valid concerns. They did not realize that the constructive dissent could have played a useful role in the combating some of the cognitive biases that impaired a judgment during the climb. So this could be a reason leaders were not at all able to develop a psychological safety among the team members. They were not allowed to speak, they were not allowed to put their view, they were not allowed to say something if they are not feeling something well or the comfortable. And because it was a kind of a statement that we are the decision maker, we are what we are saying is a law, and you have to follow. So this is all about the things. And again, lack of familiarity. Lack of familiarity is also was damaging the psychological safety among the team members. The team was a complete group of a complete strangers, and it was mentioned by the team people that we were the a team in a name only. Actually, we were not a team. We were not knowing each other. We were not comfortable with each other. Many of the people who had a problem in interacting with each other because some of them were not comfortable in speaking English. So such kind of issues were there, and they were completely strangers, and that's why they were not able to develop a trusting relationship as a teammate. And several climbers admitted that they have worried a great deal about what others thought about them, and that's why they were not comfortable with each other, and that's why they were not able to express their view also openly, exchanging their ideas openly, just because of the lack of the trust and the mutual respect. Lack of familiarity is there are incidences or the statements which support such kind of lack of familiarity, like and Bokriv knew Fisher and Bedell, but he had never met most of the Mountain Madness client. He used to say that I am not comfortable in speaking English, that's why I am not speak up forcefully despite serious concerns about my team's acclimatization routines. He has a feeling that the Fisher's plans was not basically accepted plan to him to move up this, and allowing the people without the oxygen, and allowing the people despite not following this 2 p.m. rule. But he does not decided to be argumentative and choosing instead to be downplay his intuitions. So overall, this was also a very reason for lack of familiarity and lack of basically trust or openness to discuss the things, created a situation where people were not able to it caused the basically absence of the candid discussions to prove to be very costly. So psychological safety we discussed, and finally we will come on the last point, that is a complex system. Complex system, as I already said, and most of you would be agreed that there are not a particular reason for a failure of any event or the success of any event. There are many things that work in an integration, and that's why we will discuss here the complex system. There are many things like the human or the technology or a group, many things work, and here in the case also like the human, we can see that human errors, the group procedures, or the terrible storm, or the equipment failures, many things work here which could be attributed to the failure of the whole acclimatization exercise. So we should not evaluate the factors in isolation, rather than we should try to see the interaction between the multiple things to finally understand the failures of a particular event. Here we will see discuss the complex interaction and tight coupling, two concept here. Complex interaction is something like there are different elements work in a particular event, and those events interact with each other, and they finally decide the final result of the event in the form of the success or the failure and the other things around. In the same way, the tight coupling is a concept which says that things are linked to each other, and how tightly the things are linked to each other, how particular how the success or a failure of a particular thing in an event will decide the other future things in the event, or the particular series of event in a particular major events. So complex interaction is a series of interconnected breakdowns or a failure occurred during the expedition also. Here also we can say there was a multiple breakdowns or failures occurred, and that which causes the final result which was not desirable. And here, like what happens in the beginning only, we can see then this Fisher team faced a problem of the logistic problem, like the custom problem at the Russian border crossing delayed the delivery of the team oxygen supply from Russia to Nepal. Custom issue did not concern the oxygen canister as something which should be provided, rather they considered as a different item, and this happened to be on the same truck which was unrelated to the Everest expedition. A problem happened with the charter plane flight, inhibited the delivery of high altitude tent. In Nepal, what happens, poor weather showed the progress of the yak carrying oxygen canister tents and other supplies from Kathmandu to base camp. Conflict happened between the Nepali porters erupted, which chose to demand the large wage increase. This too also impeded the delivery of oxygen and other supplies. So these things which happened, these were the particular breakdowns or failures happen in the whole managing of the event, and which somehow affected the final result of this event, which the failure of the event also. Because due to this logistic problem, what happens, there was immense burden was created on the Fisher. He spent a considerable amount of time while resolving this issue rather than playing the team's course of action or acclimating himself properly to the higher altitude. So overall, he got exhausted in dealing with all these things, logistic issues, even the journey was not started. And the time he contributed to managing all these things, logistic issue, should be contributed to some expedition exercise, acclimatization exercise, or taking care of the team, or being comfortable with the team, giving time to the team, managing the team and group dynamics. So despite giving the time to all these things, activities which could be more if required, his energy and the time was exhausted in managing these logistic issues. So complex interactions happen. Also, like some other events also happened, like jaise ki they were used to fix the rope, and they had basically they were in assumption ki rope are already fixed. from the camp 4 to the summit. But once they reached this 1400 feet above the camp 4, they realized that कि ये 1400 के बाद rope नहीं है, and they have to fix the rope for the rest of the 1600 feet of the climb. So this incorrect assumption also created a problem. उसके बाद क्या हुआ कि the person, the Sherpa who was responsible for the fixing of the rope, he recognized the problem, but he was not able to move ahead for fixing the rope because of this whole safety procedure. He has fixed some rule that everybody would reach, then a particular person will move ahead. So some kind of rule was created, and that's why the whole people has to waited for an hour to rest of the horse team to arrive. So this also created a bottleneck. So somehow एक rope नहीं fix हुई, उसके बाद the whole team waited for an hour, and so overall the whole journey of the whole team got delayed just because of this issue, and there's a wrong assumption and the fixing of the rope and setting of some rules by the hall. Similarly, कुछ और भी ऐसा हुआ, like the Lobsang Jangbu Sherpa was also there. He was also responsible. Yes. So he was also responsible for fixing of the rope. लेकिन यहाँ पे भी what happens कि he also got exhausted by as one of the client got ill. So he has to bring down that client, and in all this journey he got basically exhausted. So he was not able to help the team in the fixing of the rope. So, these things. So overall, we can see that in some we felt that team will fall behind the schedule, incurred a dangerous storm because of the complex set of interaction among the custom problems in Russia, this Scott Fisher's acclimatization routine in Nepal, this rope problem. So all these things basically caused the complex interactions among the events, and finally affected the final results also. Finally, the tight coupling. Tight coupling means somehow what happens. There are the events जहाँ पे there are tight coupling could be or there could be not. Like here we can see there was a tight coupling means एक गलती हुई तो उस गलती का नुकसान you have to face a consequence and there could be a very instant and the major impact on the final result also. Because there are the chain of events, and one wrong decision or one failure at a particular moment may happen, may affect the whole event only. So here also tight couplings means one breakdown triggers a series of the problem. Tight coupling system have the 4 features, like जहाँ पे आप बहुत ज़्यादा time dependent process है कि इस time तक ये हो जाना चाहिए, इस particular time तक ये हो जाना चाहिए. So if there is the process are so much time dependent, so it is very obvious कि अगर आप if a particular movement or a particular event got delayed, तो ये आगे के event को भी affect करेगा. Similarly, a fairly rigid consequence of the activities. The sequence of the activities are very rigid. You cannot shuffle the activities कि आप ये काम पहले कर लो, ये काम बाद कर लो. ऐसा नहीं है. अगर there is a very rigid schedule कि आपको ये के बाद ये करना है. Then also there is a tight coupling. You have only dominant path to achieve the goal. आपके पास सिर्फ एक रास्ता है काम करने का. You don't have any alternative way to achieve the things. So and finally you don't have a very chance to be flexible in managing all the things. So here in this event the tight coupling was there. Time dependence was so much. You have to do a particular जहाँ पे the whole event was basically set up with the timelines. आपको इस दिन इस समय तक यहाँ पहुँच जाना है, and if you will not do so, then it will bring a very difficult result, and it will affect the whole exercise or event, and finally may bring a fatal result.
Ma'am, can we ask you a question as of now, or should we wait for the end of the session?
No, but I will close up, then we will discuss the final. Okay. So this is all about the tight coupling. I will move quickly because time is not much more. So this is yeah.
Ma'am, there's one person who's raising the hand.
Yeah, ma'am, I'm here. I can. They can ask.
Nivedita ma'am, if you'd like to ask a question, please. You can say it.
Yeah. Madam, can you give us a practical example about tight coupling, ma'am?
यही तो है मैम practical example.
Yeah, practical.
But yeah, practical example is the tight coupling. See, there are some events जहाँ पे आपको you cannot manage to shuffle the things. जहाँ आप many things, आप उरी मूवी आप लोगों ने देखी होगी, जहाँ पे they decided to go for this, जहाँ पे गए और उन्होंने सब कैंप्स को उन्होंने डिस्ट्रॉय किया, जो भी था. ऐसे सब मूवमेंट्स में देयर इज अ टाइट कपलिंग. यू कैन नॉट एफर्ट टू डू अ फेल इन अ पर्टिकुलर थिंग, क्योंकि आपकी एक गलती पूरे इवेंट को खराब कर सकती है या पूरी प्लानिंग आपकी गड़बड़ हो सकती है. तो सो दिस माउंट एवरेस्ट केस ऑल्सो, और अदरवाइज द पूरी मूवी में भी जैसे आपने देखा होगा, या इस तरीके की जो इंसिडेंट होते हैं जहाँ पे सब कुछ बहुत प्लान्ड है. अनदर मूवी आई कैन सी हियर, कौन सी थी वो, अक्षय कुमार की मूवी थी जिसमें बहुत अच्छा उन्होंने किया था, उसमें भी. तो ऐसे हैं. तो ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर टाइट कपलिंग. ऐसे में आप नहीं एफर्ट रिस्क नहीं ले सकते कि आपको मतलब करना है नहीं करना है. बट हाँ, हमारे जैसे इवेंट जैसे कि अभी है, आई कैन डिले फॉर 10 मिनट्स और 15 मिनट्स, तो उससे बहुत ज्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. यहाँ पे टाइम डिपेंडेंस है, बट इतना ज्यादा नहीं है कि मतलब कि पूरा प्रोग्राम आपका फेल हो जाएगा या इवेंट फेल हो जाएगा. तो हियर टाइम डिपेंडेंस इज नॉट मच. तो हियर आई कैन सी कि टाइट कपलिंग इतना नहीं होगा. मे बी आज सुबह मैं बीमार पड़ जाती तो मे बी हो सकता है मैं मैम को बोलती तो सुनीता मैम शायद एट रैंडम कोई स्पीकर भी अरेंज कर लेते. तो यहाँ पे मतलब छोटा मोटा फेलियर होता तो वी कैन अफोर्ड, इस तरीके की इवेंट में वी कैन अफोर्ड, बट समटाइम्स वी कैन नॉट. सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
So this is all about integrating the perspective. So yes, things work, individual, group and system level things work. Explain the flawed organizational strategies and the outcomes. So here the case which says psychological safety, absence of the psychological safety may bring more difficult situation accompanied by the cognitive biases. क्योंकि अगर psychological safety नहीं है, then people would not be allowed to speak or open up or to discuss the things. And that's why the cognitive biases will come. Because if you will go with the individual decision, then there is a high probability that there would be the cognitive biases. In the same way, system biases in the judgment may also happen in the complex system, because one mistake may trigger a series of the breakdown in the events. So this is all about so cognitive biases and the psychological safety. These are related. If you are allowing your team members to speak up on the open up, put their view constructively, you are allowing the constructive discussion on the issues, then the psychological safety will be there, and obviously the decision would also be accepted, as well as probably a well decision, because it is a decision which will be taken in the group with all the constructive views taken. And obviously it would be accepted to the people also, because you are taking the decision in the group rather than you are taking the decision by other top-down approach. Cognitive biases and the complex system also work because of the complex interactions and the tight coupling, and small errors in the human judgment can trigger many other breakdowns through a high risk system. So human elements may trigger the may create a problem in the complex system, because system is a complex equipment, material supply, rules, procedure, natural environment, all these things are related. So while managing the things, if the cognitive biases are not there, then there are chances that the complex system work well. Otherwise, if there is a tight coupling and the complex interaction and the cognitive biases are also there, then there is a problem that the system may not work. So complex system and the team psychological safety is also there. In the complex system, if the things are interrelated and you are relying on the system, on the team, on the different people who are performing a different role, different functions, then there is a very much requirement that you have to create an environment of the psychological safety. Because if the people would be comfortable to discuss the mistakes, the team may come to recognize that a single human error does not cause a failure in the complex system. So candid discussion should be there to realize the mistake, find out the way to correct the mistakes, or to avoid the mistake, or to minimize, to make the system work, the complex system work. Because things are interrelated and so closely related that a particular bad decision may bring or may cause a very destructive results. So finally, the leaders should pay attention to many things, implications for the leaders or the managers while managing an event. The first thing they should go for is balancing the competing force. Balancing the competing force here is balancing the between the confidence and the overconfidence. Confidence is required because without this nobody can move ahead to face the particular challenge, and events are always challenge. Whenever you are going to hold an event or manage the event, it is always a challenge, and you are with some, you must be carried by some positive stress while managing the challenge. So confidence is a required, self-efficacy is required, but at that time, the overconfidence should not be there. And overconfidence means basically to avoid or the ignore the things which is giving you some signals, avoid the background information, avoid the background discussion, avoid the taking the things holistically, avoid the understanding the views or the possible errors or the possible risk. So these things should not be there. So confidence should be there, but to avoid the confidence, leaders should go with the information discussion, constructive discussion, develop the environment of the psychological safety. Don't go with the assumption, rather than go with the facts and analysis. So all these things should be there. Coming on the sharing perception and shaping perception and belief. As a leader or a manager, you are the person who decide the perception and belief of the people. Somehow you are a source of the source who shape the perception and belief of the people. How you are behave as a leader or a manager, it shape the perception and belief of the people. That here we can see the people were feeling psychological safe because of the leadership style, because of the leader's statement, because of the leader's judgment. As a leader, you have decided to go for the difference in the compensation. As a leader, you have decided to choose the rule of the 1 or 2 p.m. You have decided that people will not object on their rule. और अगर आपने अगर कर ही दिया था 1 or 2 p.m. का rule, then why you decided not to go with the rule? Because as a leader, if you had decided कि there would be no argument, 1 or 2 p.m. means 1 or 2 p.m. और अगर आपने or if as a leader you have had developed this psychological safety, तो अगर आप 1 or 2 p.m. का rule आपने खुद नहीं avoid follow किया, then you should allow the people to challenge your view. Then probably you if the people might have a feeling of the psychological safety, and then so there was a possibility कि जहाँ पे there are a few people who might have challenged this decision of moving ahead despite being behind the schedule. तो शायद ये डिसीजन करेक्ट हो सकता था, एंड फाइनली द टीम वुड कम अप, जो भी नहीं पहुंचे थे 2 बजे तक, और सभी मतलब दे माइट हैव डिसाइडेड टू कम डाउन. So that's why this shaping perception and belief is a responsibility of the leader and manager, and how you behave, how you give the statement, how you set the rule, how you follow the rule, because if you are setting the rule, then you should follow the rules also. So all these things decide shape the perception and belief. Learning from failure is a most critical thing. Was obviously whenever the kind of tragedy happens, people used to find out why happened, क्या reason था, and there is a tendency कि we used to say कि ये human error था और उनकी वजह से हुआ. This may happen. So yes, okay, if this was a human error, then try to bring learning from those things जहाँ पे आपको लगता है कि human error था, and what were those human error which caused the failure of the event. So don't go with individual, group and organization level analysis in isolation, but yes, examine how the cognitive, interpersonal and systematic forces interact, affect the process and the performance, how the system complexity, team structure, belief, cognitive limitations work there, and how these things basically decided the failure or the success, or how these things were complementary or mutually reinforcing the concept. So we need to basically recognize that what were the multiple factors that contributed to the large scale organization failure or a success. Try to explore the linkages among the psychological and sociological factors involved, and find out these forces at the individual, group and organization system level. So this is all about, so whenever we talk about any particular event or organization or a kind of movement, there are many things that work. These things are the psychological, social or structural. In the organization or also there are not a particular thing which could be attributed for the organization success or failure. कोई भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन किसी एक रीजन की वजह से या कोई भी इवेंट किसी एक रीजन की वजह से सक्सेस या fail नहीं होता है. There are multiple things work. Whenever we would just, whenever we used to refer a particular case study of organization which was successful or not successful, we will see if there are multiple things that work. We used to in our classes we used to refer the cases of the organizations like the G, that what they had done, and what we can see that how that they have what they had basically decided to make their organization successful, and those decisions were related to the organization structure, the line staff functions, the HR decisions related to the how the people would be there, what kind of their performance assessment rule would be there, what kind of the training would be there for the people, and especially another decision as well, like the being global or the being local, the kind of the product. So there are many things like the technology, the human element, the system, the structure, all these things, your style of the leadership. So many things work as a complex system, as all these things interact with each other to decide the final result of the success and the failure of the event or the organization. So this is all from my side. I'm here to listen all of you. Yeah.
Any queries? If any queries, please ask. Anyone having queries would like to put a question? As it is that we've taken time, ma'am, it was a very elaborative and very interesting session from you. And we learned a lot regarding, the behavioral issues of the employees and how can the fallouts can be managed within a team. So that was the interesting part of the session. Now I would request Nivedita ma'am to kindly provide us the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Nivedita.
Yeah.
I teach marketing at Kakati Institute of Technology and Science, Warangal, Telangana.
Okay.
So I'm happy to propose a vote of thanks for this session. First and foremost, I'd like to give a big hats off to Dr. Walia for taking such a Herculean task of 5-day FDP. I think it's very challenging. So congratulations to you. And Mrs. Alka Rai, the Assistant Professor of NTPC School of Business at Noida. Your topic in identifying behavioral issues at workplace is very interesting, ma'am. This topic wasn't covered earlier by any one of the sessions, so it's very interesting. And I think I liked your idea of giving a visual presentation as a case study because I've never tried it before. So this is a very nice input for all of us where we can use a visual, to give a case study, which will make it interesting for students. So thank you so much for that. And you have covered so many topics, madam. So I'm just giving you a few as what I have able to, recollect. You talked about team effectiveness. You talked about cognitive biases. You talked about different perspectives. You talked about psychological safety, different leadership styles, lack of familiarity, and you talked about how important it is to have candid discussion because mostly, we try to, cover up discussions and try to just push things ahead. So a candid discussion, I think, can save a lot of face in a lot of situations. So that will be very nice. And you also gave a very interesting thing that no single factor is responsible for failure of success of anybody. So I think this we need to understand. So general tendency, if anybody is, when success comes, you take it onto your head, and when failure comes, you push it on others. So this is a very nice thing that you shared with us, ma'am. And a very big thanks to you for giving me a very nice idea on sharing my case studies in visual form because I'm going to handle OB this year for my students. So this will be really helpful for me. So thank you very much. And Valia, congratulations to you. And choosing such different topics that are very interesting. I'm hooked to the, these sessions from the day one. Very interesting. So thank you very much and good afternoon, all of you.
Thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity to be here because it is always a pleasure and it is always a learning to be in the session. It is always, I always say as a teacher, or I believe that all of you would be agreed, learning is not a one way. We always learn from the audience side also. So this is my philosophy and that's why I'm thankful to be here and thankful to all of you for listening to me.
Thank you, Nivedita ma'am, and thank you, Dr. Alka. It was a pleasure to have you as a resource person. We learned a lot from you, and a big thank you on behalf of all the participants.
Thank you everyone.